Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make the JBurns Chain Garden Bracelet. This bracelet combines two of my original designs, the butterfly chain bracelet and the flower chain bracelet. So I would recommend making both of these bracelets before you make this bracelet. The links to these videos on how to make these bracelets will be in the description. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you what you will need. To make this bracelet, you will need your loom. Any loom with 13 pins in each of its rows will work for this tutorial. So if you count how many pins are in the left row, you would count 13. If you counted how many pins were in the middle row, you would count 13. And if you counted the number of pins in the right row, you would have 13 as well. So if you have less than 13 pins in each of the rows, then you will not be able to make this bracelet. But if you have more than 13 pins, you can make this bracelet. So as you can see here, I have my rainbow loom. You will also need your hook. Any hook will work as well. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using my rainbow loom metal hook, or my metal tip hook. You will also need a clip. Any clip will work as long as it is for rubber band bracelets. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be using an S-clip because that's what I usually use when making bracelets. And not only will you need all of those things there, but you will also need rubber bands. As you can see here on my band organizer, I have 3 different color rubber bands. These A rubber bands are going to be the single chain rubber bands that run through the middle of the bracelet. As seen here on the example, they are black, and in this tutorial they will also be black. You will also need another color, which are these B rubber bands, to be your inner rubber bands, and these rubber bands are, on this example, these pearlized rubber bands from Rainbow Loom, and they're kind of in this circle shape in the middle of the flowers and also in the butterflies. And in this example, they are jelly turquoise from Rainbow Loom, and in this tutorial they will be pearlized rubber bands from Rainbow Loom. And also you will need a third color, which are the C rubber bands, and these rubber bands will be the wing rubber bands on the butterflies and the petal rubber bands on your flowers. And in this example they are pink, and in this tutorial they will be these jelly yellow rubber bands from Rainbow Loom. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you how many of each color you're going to need. You're going to need about 13 A rubber bands, so single chain rubber bands. You will need 18 B rubber bands, or inner rubber bands, and you will need 32 C rubber bands, or wing and petal rubber bands, for a total of about 63 rubber bands, and this is not including your extension. So anyway, now that you know what you will need, get your supplies, and use the pause button so that you can do so, and I will see you once you have everything. Alright, well, as you can see, I have my loom positioned a little differently, or well, differently from how I usually have my loom and my camera. Now instead of seeing my loom straight on, you see my loom sideways, and I am trying some new angles and things like that this week because I want to be able to see, or you to be able to see more clearly what I am doing. And yeah, so I'm just going to give this angle a new try. If you really don't like this and you prefer the other one, just tell me in the comments, but I'm just going to be trying this new angle because why not? So anyway, what we need to do now is we need to start placing rubber bands. And the first rubber bands we're going to be placing are our A rubber bands or our single chain rubber bands. You will only need 12 of the 13 single chain rubber bands. The 13th single chain rubber band you can just put to the side for later, because we will be using that as a cap band later on when we get to the looming part of this bracelet. So anyway, let's get started. To make this bracelet, you need to make sure that the arrow on your loom is pointing away from you. So that means I'm over here. Hello. And yeah, so make sure the arrow on your loom is pointing away from you. And now we're going to start placing rubber bands. So to start placing rubber bands, get a single chain rubber band and start on this first middle pin. Now with this single chain rubber band, you're going to place it going from this first middle pin to this second middle pin. Then, with another single chain rubber band, you're going to place it going from this second middle pin to this third middle pin. Then, with another single chain rubber band, you're going to place it going from this third middle pin to this fourth middle pin. And what you're going to be doing is just placing single chain rubber bands going up this middle row of pins on your loom. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this part of the video. So if you need to use the pause button, go ahead and use it. And I will see you once I've placed all of my single chain rubber bands going up the middle row of pins on my loom. Alright, as you can see, I have just now finished placing all of the single chain rubber bands going up the middle pin bar on my loom. So as you can see, the arrow is still pointing away from me. And here's what you should have on your loom once you finish placing single chain rubber bands. Now we are done placing single chain rubber bands, with the exception of the 13th single chain rubber band you should have left over. And now what we're going to be placing are our inner rubber bands, which on this example, they are these jelly turquoise rubber bands from Rainbow Loom, and they're kind of in this circle shape in the middle of the butterflies, and also in a little circle in the middle of the flowers. And in this tutorial, they are these pearlized rubber bands from Rainbow Loom. So now we're going to begin to place those. Now, to begin placing your inner rubber bands, you're going to start on this second middle pin. Now, with an inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from this second middle pin to this second left pin. Then, from this second left pin to this third left pin, you will place another inner rubber band. Then, from this third left pin to this fourth middle pin, you will place another inner rubber band. Now you should have this half of a hexagon shape on your loom. Now we're going to do this exact same thing here we did on the left, now on the right. You're going to get another inner rubber band, place it going from this second middle pin to this second right pin. Then, with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from this second right pin to the third right pin. And then with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going inwards from this third right pin to this fourth middle pin. Now you should have a full hexagon on your loom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do this exact same thing, but now we need to find the 6th middle pin on our looms. So here's the 6th middle pin on my loom, and this is where we're going to start placing another hexagon. So go ahead, get another inner rubber band, and starting now on this 6th middle pin, we're going to place this inner rubber band going outwards to this 6th left pin. Then, with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from the 6th left pin to this 7th left pin. Then again, with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from the 7th left pin to this 8th middle pin. And now you should have this half of a hexagon shape on the left side of your loom. Now we're going to do this exact same thing we did on the left, now on the right. Get another inner rubber band and place it from this 6th middle pin to this 6th right pin. Then, with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from this 6th right pin to this 7th right pin. And finally, with another inner rubber band, you're going to place it going from this 7th right pin inwards to this 8th middle pin. Now you should have another hexagon on your loom. Now you should still have 6 more inner rubber bands left over, and we're going to place 1 more hexagon on our looms. So now what we have to do is we need to find the 10th middle pin on our loom. Now we are going to, once you find your 10th middle pin, remember this pin because now we are going to start placing our last hexagon on our loom. Because as you can see, here's the end of my loom. Now you should have a 3rd hexagon on your loom. So here now is what you should have on your loom once you have finished placing all of the inner rubber bands. Now we are done placing inner rubber bands on our loom. Now you're going to get all of your C rubber bands, or in other words, your wing and petal rubber bands, because now we are going to place these on our loom. Alright, now go ahead and get your, of course, your C rubber bands, or in other words, your petal and wing rubber bands. And now we're going to begin placing these. Now to begin, you're going to need to know that this first hexagon on your loom is going to be a flower chain flower. So here's an example of the flower chain flower. Hello! And the first hexagon on your loom starts on the 2nd middle pin. Make sure that the arrow on your loom is pointing away from you. So that means I'm over here. And also, before we do begin, all of the petal rubber bands and the wing rubber bands will be double rubber bands. So that means there will be two rubber bands that make up one petal or one wing. But anyway, placing the petal rubber bands for a flower chain flower is very easy. All you need to do is just place these petal rubber bands the same way you place these inner rubber bands. Now to begin, you're going to start on the second middle pin, and with two petal rubber bands, you're going to place them going outwards to the second left pin. So from the second middle pin to the second left pin. Then, with two more petal rubber bands, you're going to place them going from this second left pin to this third left pin. And then, with two more petal rubber bands, you're going to place them going inwards from this third left pin to this fourth middle pin. And as you can see, these petal rubber bands I just placed are on top of all of these inner rubber bands that were on top before. So now we're going to do this exact same thing we did here on the left, now on the right. Get two petal rubber bands and start on the second middle pin. And from the second middle pin to the second right pin, you will place these two petal rubber bands. Then, with two more petal rubber bands, you're going to place them going from the second right pin to this third right pin. And then, with two more petal rubber bands, you're going to place them going inwards from this third right pin to this fourth middle pin. And now, as you can see, I have placed petal rubber bands on top of all of my inner rubber bands that were on top before. Now, we are going to move on to the second hexagon. And if, of course, you have made my butterfly chain bracelet, you can get your hook for the placing of these wing rubber bands. And you will see why you might want to get your hook in a moment. Now, placing these wing rubber bands is kind of similar to placing these petal rubber bands on the flower chain flower, except you will not be placing wing rubber bands on top of all of the inner rubber bands. But you will start on the sixth middle pin and place two wing rubber bands going outwards to the sixth the sixth left pin. So from the sixth middle pin to the sixth right pin. Then you can get your hook for this, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be grabbing this side of the rubber bands that is closest to the seventh middle pin. So you can do this with your hook, but you can also do this with your fingers. But I'm going to be using my hook because that's what I prefer. So you're going to grab the side of the rubber bands that is closest to the seventh middle pin, and you're going to pull this side inwards to the seventh middle pin. And this should create a triangle shape on your loom. So here is what that looks like. Now we're going to do the same thing here we did on the left, now on the right. We're going to get two wing rubber bands and place them going from the sixth middle pin to the sixth right pin. Then with your hook or your fingers, you will grab this side of the rubber bands that is closest to the seventh middle pin and pull that side inwards to the seventh middle pin. And that should create another triangle shape on the right side of your loom. So here's what that looks like. And now we're going to do this exact same thing we did here on the bottom half of the hexagon on the top. So you're going to get 2 wing rubber bands, and now you're going to place them going inwards from this 7th left pin to this 8th middle pin. Then, with your hook or your fingers, you're going to grab this side of the rubber bands that is closest to the 7th middle pin. This should create another triangle shape on now the left side. This should create another triangle shape now on the top left side of your second hexagon, and here is what that looks like. Now we're going to do the same thing we did here on the left, now on the right. We're going to get 2 wing rubber bands, and we're going to place them going inwards from now this 7th right pin to this 8th middle pin. And then get your hook, or you can use your fingers, and you're going to grab this side of the rubber bands that is closest to the 7th middle pin, and you're going to pull it inward, that side inwards to that 7th middle pin. And this will create another triangle on now the top right side of your second hexagon. And here is what that should look like. Now we are done placing wing rubber bands or any rubber bands on our second hexagon. Now we're going to move on to our third hexagon. And our third hexagon starts on the 10th middle pin. You should also have 12 C rubber bands remaining for this last hexagon. Now this last hexagon on your loom, or this third hexagon, is going to be a flower chain flower, just like your first hexagon. So here's the flower chain flower, and we're going to be placing the petal rubber bands for this. And while placing the petal rubber bands for the flower chain flower on your loom is the same as placing the flower chain flower petals on your first hexagon. And placing the petal rubber bands for this hexagon is very easy. You're going to start on this 10th middle pin. Now, we are finished placing rubber bands on our loom for this bracelet, with the exception of this last single chain rubber band you should have left, because this single chain rubber band is going to be a cap band for our bracelet. So put this to the side and also get out your hook, because now we are going to begin the looming process. Also, here is what your loom should look like once you have everything on your loom except for your cap band. Alright, now we can actually begin the looming process. Now, to start the looming process, you're going to need to make sure that the arrow on your loom is now pointing towards you. So turn your loom around so that is true. And now what we're going to do is we're going to place the cap band on our bracelet for our bracelet. Now, to make a cap band, you're going to take the rubber band you wish to make into a cap band, twist it into an 8 or an infinity sign, and then fold this cap band onto itself like a book, and now it should look like you have 2 rubber bands instead of 1. But remember, this is still only 1 rubber band. Now what you're going to do with this cap band is you're going to place it on this first middle pin. Now we're going to get our hooks, and we can actually now start to loom this bracelet. Now to loom this bracelet, you're going to get your hook and you're going to start on this first middle pin. Now to begin, you're going to start on this first middle pin and you're going to pull back all of the top rubber bands, and there should only be one, and this one rubber band is actually your cap band. Then what you're going to do is you're going to grab this bottom rubber band and you're going to hold this cap band down so that it does not come off this first middle pin, and you're going to bring this rubber band that's on your hook forwards to your second middle pin. I need to fix my cap band. There we go. So here's what should be on your loom now. Now you are here at this first hexagon, and this first hexagon is a flower chain flower. And when you loom this, you're going to completely, or well, not completely, but you're not going to loom these petal rubber bands that you had just placed. You're instead going to loom all of the inner rubber bands that are on the bottom. To begin looming your inner rubber bands, you're going to pull back the top 4 rubber bands, and these top 4 rubber bands are all petal rubber bands. So pull back all of your petal rubber bands with your hook. And you're going to grab the top rubber bands underneath of those petal rubber bands. And this rubber band should be an inner rubber band. And you're going to loom this inner rubber band that's now on your hook outwards to the left, because that is where it should be coming from. Then, now that you're on this left pin here, this third left pin to be exact, you're going to just pull back all the top rubber bands now and grab the very bottom rubber band, and you're going to loom it forwards to this fourth left pin, if I can get it there. And I also do apologize if my hand gets in the way. I usually loom with my left hand, and that could be a little bit of a problem. But I will try to keep my hand out of the way so you can see what I am doing. So anyway, now we are on this fourth left pin, and we're going to do the same thing as we did on the third left pin. We're going to pull back all the top rubber bands, grab the bottom rubber band, and loom it inwards to now this fourth middle pin. Okay, hopefully you were able to see that. Now we have loomed the left side of the inner rubber bands, and now we're going to do the same thing we did here on the left, now on the right. We're going to pull back, we're going to come back to the second middle pin, and we're going to pull back all of the petal rubber bands, or in other words the top 4 rubber bands, and we're going to grab the top rubber bands underneath of those rubber bands, and this rubber band should be an inner rubber band still, and we're going to loom it going outwards to this right pin here, and to be exact, it should be the third right pin. Now that we're on this right pin here, this third right pin, we're going to pull back all the top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it forwards to this fourth right pin. Now that we're on this fourth right pin, we're going to pull back all the top rubber bands once again, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it inwards now to this fourth middle pin. And now we should have all of the inner rubber bands loomed on our first hexagon. Now we're going to loom the single chain rubber bands that run through the middle of this hexagon. So we're going to return to this second middle pin, and we're going to pull back now all of the top rubber bands because the bottom rubber band, there should be only one rubber band that isn't a petal rubber band or any other type of rubber band on this second pin. And we're going to grab the bottom rubber band and we're going to loom it forwards to this third middle pin. Then once we're on this third middle pin, we're going to grab this single chain rubber band and we're going to loom it forwards to this fourth middle pin. Now the single chain rubber band on this fourth middle pin is a little more difficult to loom than all of the other single chain rubber bands, except for this one here on the 8th middle pin and this one here on the 12th middle pin, because there are a lot of rubber bands that this rubber band has to resist so that it can be loomed forwards to this 5th middle pin. So I will go ahead and loom this, and I will give you a few extra seconds after I have loomed the single chain rubber band in case if you need them, because this rubber band you're going to need some patience to loom. So I'm going to go ahead and loom this. To loom this single chain rubber band on the 4th middle pin, you're just going to pull back all of these top rubber bands, so all the top rubber bands, and you're going to grab this single chain rubber band that's at the very bottom, and you're going to loom it patiently and slowly and carefully forwards to this 5th middle pin. Now don't rush yourself, because I just finished, or I just loomed this rubber band. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few more seconds to catch up in case if you need them. Now we're just going to go ahead, and I give you a few seconds. If you need to continue looming this single chain rubber band here forwards, then just use the pause button, but I'm going to go ahead and continue. Now, we're on this 5th middle pin, and all we're going to do here is just grab this single chain rubber band and loom it forwards to this 6th middle pin. Now you should be here at this second hexagon on your loom, and the second hexagon on your loom should be a butterfly chain butterfly. Now looming the butterfly chain for butterfly is the same as looming your flower chain flower, because you will not be looming any of the wing rubber bands, but instead you will be looming all of the inner rubber bands. So to loom this butterfly here, you're going to pull back the top 4 rubber bands, or in other words your wing rubber bands, and you're going to grab the top rubber band underneath of those wing rubber bands, and you're going to loom it outwards to the left. This rubber band that you had on your hook should have been an inner rubber band. Now we're going to loom this inner rubber band here on the 7th left pin, and to loom this inner rubber band, you're just going to pull back all of the top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it forwards to this 8th middle pin. Then, once you're on this 8th left pin, you're just going to grab this bottom rubber band and loom it inwards to this 8th middle pin. Now you should have loomed the left side of your butterfly. Now we're going to do the same thing we did here on the left, now on the right. We're going to pull back all of the wing rubber bands, or in other words, the top 4 rubber bands. We're going to grab this top rubber band underneath of those wing rubber bands and loom it outwards to this right pin over here, the 7th right pin. And now that we're on this 7th right pin, we're going to pull back all of the top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it forwards, apologies with my hand, forwards to this 8th right pin. Now that we're on this 8th right pin, we're going to loom this inner rubber band the same as we have loomed all the other inner rubber bands. We're just going to pull back all the top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it inwards to this 8th middle pin. Now we should have loomed all of the inner rubber bands on our second hexagon. Now we need to loom all of our single chain rubber bands. And to do this, we need to come back to the 6th middle pin, pull back all of the top rubber bands, because the only rubber band underneath of these wing rubber bands should be a single chain rubber band. And you're going to loom this single chain rubber band forwards to this 7th middle pin. Then, from this 7th middle pin, we're going to pull back all the top rubber bands once again, grab this bottom rubber band, and this bottom rubber band should be a single chain rubber band, and you're just going to loom it forwards to this 8th middle pin. And now we come to this single chain rubber band on this 8th middle pin, and looming this single chain rubber band on this 8th middle pin is pretty much the same as looming the single chain rubber band on this 4th middle pin. You're going to need to be patient and slow and careful with this rubber band so it does not break. Now looming this single chain rubber band is the same as looming pretty much all of the others. Just pull back all of these top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it forwards to this 9th middle pin, very slowly and carefully. And I have mine loomed, but I have my single chain rubber band here loomed, but do not rush yourself because I have just finished mine. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few extra seconds just in case if you need them. Alright, now we're going to continue. If you need to continue looming this rubber band forwards, then just use the pause button. But anyway, now we are on this 9th middle pin, and to loom this, we're just going to simply grab this single chain rubber band on that pin and loom it forwards to this 10th middle pin. Now this should bring you to your last hexagon on your loom, and this last hexagon on your loom is also a flower chain flower, just like your first hexagon, and looming this is the same as looming pretty much all of your other hexagons. You're just going to be looming the inner rubber bands and not your petal rubber bands. Now we're going to go ahead through and just loom these single chain rubber bands that run through the middle of this last hexagon. And to loom these, all you have to do is you need to come back, or to loom these single chain rubber bands, all you need to do is come back to this 10th middle pin once again, pull back all of the petal rubber bands, or in other words, all of the top rubber bands, because the only rubber band underneath of them should be a single chain rubber band, and you're going to loom this single chain rubber band forwards to this 11th middle pin, And then on this 11th middle pin, you're going to grab this single chain rubber band and you're going to loom it forwards to this 12th middle pin. Apologies for my hand there. And now, looming this single chain rubber band on this 12th middle pin is going to be the same as looming the single chain rubber bands on this 8th middle pin and on this 4th middle pin. I will give you a few extra seconds after I finish looming my single chain rubber band so that you can have yours loomed. You can follow along with the video. But to loom this single chain rubber band on this 12th middle pin, you just pull back all the top rubber bands, grab this bottom rubber band, and loom it forwards, slowly and carefully, to this 13th middle pin. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few extra seconds so that you can loom this in case if you need them. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and continue. But once you finish looming this last single chain rubber band on this 12th middle pin, you are now done looming all of the rubber bands on your bracelet. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you what your loom looks like once you have all of your rubber bands loomed. Now that you have every rubber band on your bracelet loom that you need to have loomed, we are now going to begin to take this bracelet off of our loom. Now, to take this bracelet off of our loom, we're going to come back to this first middle pin, and what we're going to do is we're going to get our hooks, and starting on this first middle pin, we're going to just pull the rubber bands on those pins off of our loom. We're just going to go through and pull the rubber bands off of each pin, one pin at a time, on our loom until we get to this 13th middle pin. We will not take the rubber bands off of this 13th middle pin. Now I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward myself taking these rubber bands off of this loom because this will take a little while, and use the pause button if you need to, and I will see you once you have taken all of the rubber bands off of your loom. Alright, well, as you can see, I have taken every rubber band off of my loom except for this rubber band on my 13th middle pin. And what you're going to do with this rubber band is you're just going to get your hook, put it in this 13th middle pin, and just take the rubber band off of that pin with your hook, like that. And the rubber bands that were on that 13th middle pin should still be on your hook once you have taken it off of your loom. So as you can see, you have your bracelet, but of course it is obviously not long enough to fit around your wrist. It's not long enough to fit around my wrist. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to start making an extension for this bracelet. Alright, well, to make an extension for your bracelet here, you're going to need to choose any two pins on your loom, and I have chosen these two here. It does not matter what two pins you choose, you can just any random two pins on your loom, As long as they are next to each other, you can use them to make your extension. Now, to start making your extension, you need to get this rubber band on your hook off of your hook. And what you're going to do is you're going to get one side of this rubber band that's on your hook, you're going to take it off, and make sure the other end stays on your hook. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this end of the rubber band that you have in your fingers on one of the two pins you have chosen. Then, with the other end of the rubber band that is still on your hook, you're going to place it on the other pin that you have chosen that is next to the other pin that you have chosen. So you should have this rubber band going across any two pins on your loom. Alright, and to make your extension, you're going to need some single chain color rubber bands, and there isn't a certain number of these you will need. It just depends on whoever's bracelet this is going to be for, and the number of extension rubber bands you will need depends on the person. So just get as many single chain rubber bands as you will need to make an extension. Anyway, we're going to be making a single chain extension for this bracelet, and to do this is we're going to get an extension rubber band, and we're going to place it going across the same two pins as this rubber band that you had just placed on these two pins before. Then you're going to get your hook, and you're going to grab the bottom rubber band and bring it over the pins it is on, and now it should be on this rubber band that was on top of it. Now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to get another extension rubber band, and we're going to place it going across the same two pins as this rubber band here that we had just placed. And we're going to grab the bottom rubber band with our hooks and bring both ends of the rubber band over the pins they are on, so that this rubber band is now on the rubber band that was above it. And as you can see, my extension is already starting to form, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this one more time. You're going to get an extension rubber band, and you're going to place it across the same two pins as this rubber band here that you had just placed. And now you're going to grab the bottom rubber band and loom both ends of this rubber band over the pins they are on. Now this rubber band you had just loomed is on this rubber band here that was above it. And all you're going to be basically doing is the same pattern of placing and looming and placing and looming until you have made your extension long enough to fit around your wrist. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward this video so that the video is not too long. Alright, well, I have now made my extension so that my bracelet is now long enough to fit around my wrist. Now what I'm going to be showing you is how to attach the clip to this end of your extension and also to the other end of your bracelet. So get your clip, and now I'm going to be showing you how to put your clip on. So I'm going to be using an S-clip, and to put your clip on this end of your extension, or this end of your bracelet, you're going to get your hook, and you're going to grab one side of the rubber band on your two pins, and you're going to bring it over to the other end of the rubber band on the other pin. So now here's what you should have on your loom. Now you're going to put your hook in this pin with your rubber bands on it, and you're going to stretch these rubber bands back onto another pin, so now that this rubber band is stretched out, and that will make placing your clip onto these rubber bands a lot easier. Alright, and once you have your clip on these rubber bands, you can take these rubber bands off of the pins they're on, and now you're going to attach your clip to the other end of your bracelet. And the other end of your bracelet is your cap band. Now to put your clip on your cap band, you're going to stretch your cap band so that it goes across two pins like this. Then you're going to get the end of your bracelet with your clip on it, and you're going to slide your clip onto this stretched out cap band. Alright, and once you have your cap band on your clip, you can take it off of the pins, and then once your clip is on both ends of your bracelet, you can go ahead and put it on. And bam! So as you can see, I am now wearing my bracelet, and hopefully you're wearing your bracelet as well, because if you got to this part of the video, then that means you have made your bracelet successfully, and now you get to have your bracelet, so yay! But anyway, I would like to thank you for watching, and I also hope you're enjoying your bracelet. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye!